The English Trap is one of many analog horror videos on YouTube spurring up since about 2020 in popularity. Their channel, Birdie Bip, hosts only two videos and clarifies this video as a one-off film project. This video will be taking a deeper look into the short project and theorizing where this could have come from and some scientific aspects of the concept. First, we're going to start off with a short video summary. The video is short with VHS style footage. An old style of music is playing in the background as an informational warning is described. The organization that produced this video is the Foundation for Education of Agricultural Risk, or FEAR. A strain of hostile trees have sprouted in the central part of the country, with the states including North and South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas being affected during spring 1974 through summer 1999. The English trap is described as a nomad traveling frequently throughout its life in search of food. The key difference between a normal tree and the English trap is their diet. While normal fauna requires sunlight to survive, the English trap relies on humans specifically. It does this by using a long branch that induces hallucinations of another person in need of help, usually being loved ones or friends. The four C's of English trap safety are code, count, call, and cover. Code means to set a code word for leaving your home. Count means keep count of the trees in your area. Call means to call for the code word when seeing someone you know. Cover cuts to saying there's nothing you can do, the tape was tampered with, displaying text that doesn't seem to fit with the rest of the video. The English trap seems to have been cited or documented before 1974 as listed in the video. This can be theorized based on the wording, specifically stating that the listed states are in the migratory path of hostile shrubbery, meaning this may not have been the only instance of this situation. The video being made could be a result of the trap becoming more frequent or reproducing to a point where they are a common occurrence. This, coupled with the nonchalant way the video is presented, further reinforces this point. The video's overall tone is portrayed in the same way a poison ivy informational video presents itself. Now let's move on to the science behind this possible anomaly. It uses some sort of method to hallucinate their victims to move them closer to the tree with its outstretched branch. Common forms of hallucinogens could be in the form of mushrooms or LSD. Some examples of plants that produce hallucinogens include Rivera cambrosa and psilocybin spores. Though they do not produce hallucinogens through airborne contact, they still produce the additional side effects. Most plants do not have the ability to produce airborne psychedelics, so the English trap is obviously some form of superplant. While the English trap is also carnivorous, no plants eat humans at this point in time. Examples of these plants include the Venus flytrap, California pitcher plant, and the round-leaved sundew. The big difference between these plants and the English trap is the lack of noticeable digestible fluids to eat its prey, along with these plants not having any sort of hallucinogenic properties. Could it be that the tree itself is hollow and has a vat of digestive fluid to submerge its victims? At this point, there's no breakdown of the organism, so we can only theorize how this tree actually functions. The English trap was described as being nomadic in the vaguest way possible. If we take this literally, there are no plants that can physically uproot themselves and migrate to a new area. However, plants can spread their seed to different area, which could be what the video is referring to. Assuming this, it could be theorized that the English trap is some sort of hybrid between a carnivorous plant and a normal tree. It could spread its influence through rhizomes, which are underground root systems. This can make sense of the nomadic lifestyle the angler trap lives. By spreading its root and sprouting in more human populated areas, that could mean that the roots have the ability to sprout nearly anywhere. It could also be theorized that this organism is an invasive species. The rhizome root system could be aggressive and usually spreads long distances from one plant, causing much of the other trees in the area to die out. Assuming this, the English trap must have a rhizome root system, large quantities of seeds, and the ability to grow fast in a short time period. Another point I want to look at is the method a victim should use when going into nature, which is marking the trees. If a person goes back to the marked trees and one or more of them is mismarked or unmarked, they should leave the area. My question is, how could this organism completely remove markings or other organisms in its environment? This could be one of two answers, being that the English trap can take over other trees, or they have some sort of defensive mechanism that can warp its image to appear differently among the marked trees. This spawns another question. If an unmarked tree was being marked, why didn't the English trap activate initially? Unlike animals who can stalk their prey, plants rely on sensors or something of the sort to catch their food. a human riding on the angler's trap should automatically trigger the organism to send out a branch and capture the victim, due to its higher sense of intelligence than other plant life, as seen with the concept of hallucinogenic plant being present in the first place. Now it's time to question the human brain and how likely it would be for hallucination of some specific people or people to be present. While it is true that humans can hallucinate people, it is usually is not as accurate as we think it is. The surrounding environment of hallucination is altered, or unrealistic aspects happen that can help a person suffering with hallucinations to differentiate between reality and fiction. LSD or any sort of psychedelic mushroom can cause extreme periods of reality distortion, meaning that the angler's trap would need to have its venom be on the same level as this. While other substances, such as cannabis, have the ability to cause hallucinations, the experience usually is not as dire unless the victim already has traits of pre existing mental illness revolving around psychosis. Psilocybin revolves around a visual and complex hallucination with geometric patterns and vibrant colors, with paranoid delusions also being present. Considering the angler's trap would need to use some sort of classic hallucinogen, visual, and sensual experience to produce the desired effect of producing the desired outcome of focusing a visual hallucination of the person known to the victim. The most probable method of this would be to somehow induce long term effects of hallucinogens, or hallucinogen persisting perception disorder, HPPD. The angler's trap would have to utilize some sort of drug such as LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, cannabis, etc., in a high enough dose to produce schizophrenic like symptoms. Considering all of this, the prefrontal cortex would need to be attacked or stimulated to produce any sort of perception alternating effects. Another point that could be brought up is if the angler's trap uses hallucinogens or illusions to capture prey. However, even if it is an illusion that the organism portrays, the prefrontal cortex would still need to be overstimulated to produce an extraordinary outcome. Illusions are purely perceptual, so in both cases, the part of the brain that processes visual information would need to be tampered with to trick the victim into coming closer to the tree. Now, you may be wondering what the closest adaptation of the angler's trap might be. It would have to consist of multiple different types of fauna existing in different categories and subgroups. The closest description of the angler's trap and its root system, evasive nature, and ability to sprout nearly anywhere would be Alantus astima, or the tree of heaven. The tree of heaven has the ability to grow very quickly towards the air, also giving its nickname, the sky tree. It has a very aggressive rhizome system, and the tree produces hundreds of thousands of seeds in a single season. Even cutting it down will continue to produce sprouts, and the roots will produce more suckers. Be asking, what are suckers? Suckers are vertical, fast growing stems that originate from the root system, allowing for fast repopulation. These trees grow about 4 to 9 feet in 25 years, but don't usually live past 50 years, yet some have been seen to exceed 100 years. The tree of heaven would need some way to digest its victims as well, which comes to the hybrids that would need to happen to produce an organism like this. A great contender to be paired with the tree of heaven would be the white-topped pitcher plant. Their similarities in root system and invasive nature make them compatible in one of the more important factors of possible breeding. A major setback is their diet, with the tree of heaven being a provider and the pitcher plant being a consumer. For the sake of this hypothetical organism, let's say that somehow they are able to breed. The most likely outcome of this would be the digestive fluid being in the trunk of the tree of heaven, resembling a vat of acid or some sort of container, or pitcher plants being embedded in the leaves. The last factor the hypothetical angler's trap would need is some sort of hallucinogen, since the prefrontal cortex needs to be simulated. This could be in the form of mushrooms with psilocybin, or a plant such as Empoemia coriambosa, or the morning glory. If the tree is trying to blend into its environment, the morning glory would be optimal. However, this still affects the needs to have an airborne hallucinogen be present to get the desired effects. So the final option could go either way, with the morning glory being more probable in the end. The appearance of this organism would be a thicker version of the tree of heaven with pitcher plants hidden within its leaves. Morning glory plants would be attached to the root system and snake its way up the tree as another potential luring tactic. I've provided a rough sketch of what I think both variants would look like here, which is not thoroughly accurate but is very close to what I would assume the species would look like. In conclusion, there is no evidence of carnivorous trees or any sort of carnivorous plant that can produce hallucinogens. While there are folktales of a man-eating tree and organisms among the lines in fictional entertainment, there's no scientific evidence of plants trying to consume humans. Not to mention that most hallucinogenic plants require the plant or mushrooms to be smoked or eaten. Even though the mushrooms could release spores, it wouldn't be enough to cause a human to have severe long-term hallucinogens. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the science behind this short little analog horror video, and I hope to see you in the next video. See you later.